So first off, thanks for inviting me to come to the XD Leadership Forum. I really appreciate that. I also appreciate all of you for attending because, well, it's spring break, it's the middle of the day, and it's Pi Day. 3.14, and luckily, to create an experience for you, there are 4 or 5 different pies out there for you to choose from. So we are business casual today, and at parts of the presentation I'll be very casual, at other parts we will get down to business. But for now I want to just kind of grind through why I think getting design into the corporate DNA is important. And when I was first invited by Toby to come to this particular talk, it's something that I think I'm really good at. He was talking about other accomplishments that I had made, but I think for me, the thing that I'm really good at is slicing through corporate jello is what I call it. And you guys know what I mean. It's that corporate jello is that stuff that binds us together, but sometimes it's very thick. And how do you have those difficult conversations with other people that really don't understand what we do? So I'm going to share with you some of the things that Jay and I have been doing over the last 3 years. That'll come in the latter half of it. But in the first half, I want to kind of talk through some stuff. Now, interestingly enough, I don't know if you guys know this, but there are 4 pillars to the XD Leadership Forum. And the one that kind of is above them all is to include experience in your company's DNA. Honest to goodness, I had no idea that's what it was. Toby told me at breakfast this morning that that's what it was, so it was really kind of a boost for me to understand that I had maybe tapped into something unknowingly. Now, what I want to do is share with you a story about trying to make the unnatural natural. And here's an interesting fact. There's no such thing as a naturally orange cheese. There really isn't. And it goes back really to the 17th century in England. As it turns out, there was kind of this orangish cheese that happened from time to time in a certain part of England with a certain type of cattle. But the stars had to be aligned, everything had to be right in order for it to be orange-ish. They noticed that there were a ton of seasonal variations in the color of cheese. The cheese manufacturers, what they did was they were noticing that because of the climate, that in the summer, if the beta-carotene was really high in the grass where these cows were eating, the cheese might look a little orange. Just a smidge orange. But in the winter, same cows eating the same dead grass, it was just white or yellow. So what the cheese manufacturers started to do is they added what's known as an annatto seed into it, and it creates a naturally, it looks natural, but an orange color. And when you look at this, you fast forward a few years, the barns still look the same, the food's a little bit different. They now have these pellets, and these pellets, guess what? They have annatto seed in it. Guess what? They also have a color wheel associated with cheese. And this is from the National Institute of Cheese. Yes, it exists. And it's not just that they have a color wheel. The amazing thing about it is they have this device called a spectrophotometer to measure if the cheese is actually orange based on the color wheel. I tell this really long story to you guys for this reason. Cheese makers made the unnatural seem natural, right? And that's what I think we as UX leaders need to do. We need to make the unnatural seem natural too. Now, real quick, I'm going to just go through a little bit of stuff and then we're going to have a group discussion at the table, okay? So, the question that I've been faced with over the last couple of years in my role as Director of Design Strategy is, how can I explain and make design natural to other parts of the business, right? How do I get it into the corporate DNA? And the question that I ask myself is, why is design unnatural? So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, give you maybe just a little bit more information. My name is Brian. I think for several of you, you know me. Most people know me because of the Big Design Conference. I want to give you a little bit of background on my education. BA in Political Science, MA in English, and then MBA in MIS. The reason why I want to point that out is I kind of fell in love with both sides of the brain. And the reason why that's important is I kind of know how to talk to the business as well as talk to the creative side, right? Now, I'm not as good at talking to the creative side as I need to be, so I partner with Jay Shu. Go ahead and stand up, Jay, please. Yep, stand up. This is Jay. Jay is a creative's creative. Thank you, right? And so he helps me with some of the creative discussions that I need to have. I have a couple of certifications in Certified Usability Analyst through Human Factors International. For many years, I did a lot of design research. Recently, Jay and I became design thinking facilitators through IDEO. This is their octopus, right? If you don't know me for the Big Design Conference, most people know me as a classically trained user researcher. I've conducted over 400 different studies. I introduced new methods. I actually built the labs out at Sabre. I built labs at 2 other companies. Also built the executive suite, the design studio suite. I'm actually really good at building stuff. And at one point I managed up to 30 experts. Most people will know me for the travel industry, but as it turns out, I've worked with these other really large brands. You've probably seen a couple of them. And there's a couple that I could have put in there. I kind of really wanted just secretly to show this to Jeremy Johnson, who's not here, so there'll be a little moral victory when Jeremy gets to see this. Now I've been doing design strategy at Sabre with Jay. I've been building up the practice. We've completed 20 plus user workshops. The wonderful thing about strategy is you are forced to work with the other parts of the business. You absolutely have to. And if I had a synonym for strategy, alignment. That's all strategy is. It's about alignment. And if you can get that tight, crisp alignment with the business, you can work magic. And on a couple of projects that we've had, one recently, we were doing a design thinking workshop. It took us 3 days, and we caught not 1 fish, but 2 big fish. And I know that we will transform the travel industry through that strategy workshop. Last year, we won an accessibility award. I developed a program with Seda Maurer. We had to work with different parts of the business. We had to work with legal. We had to work with procurement. We had to work with training and HR. Wonderful recognition. And then, of course, if you don't know me for any of that, here's the Big Design Conference. Now, sneak peek, ladies and gentlemen. This is the new site. It is not public. You guys are actually getting to see it for the first time. And if that wasn't enough, I'm here to announce publicly for the first time we are moving to Dallas. We will be at Gillies, Dallas in September. So I hope that you guys send your team. If you want to sponsor, let Jay or I know. Really just want you there. A lot of good discussions at the conference. And as Toby had said, the SMU UX certification program, we were a Tech Titans finalist last year. We're voted as a top 50 program a few years ago. I actually have one of our students is here. Go ahead and please stand up. Stand up, wave. Awesome. And that actually is probably one of the most rewarding things, is to see a student develop as opposed to launch a program, to actually see a person develop. Another thing is I'm a keynote author on SlideShare, mainly through the South by Southwest presentations. I also wrote a book, okay? Great, that's a lot of stuff, Brian. What does that have to do with why is design unnatural? Well, I'm glad I asked myself. Our tools are strange. They're weird. Other people don't do this stuff, right? Guess what? It's not only are our tools strange, our routines are different. Most people don't go to the whiteboard at the drop of a hat. Okay, I know designers. and you might know them. They have these things called art carts, right? They have sticky notes, they have Sharpies, they have all this stuff. They have their art carts, they are ready to go, right? And you know what? To really even make it more artificial, yeah, we have these usability labs, very artificial. Let's take them out of their natural environment. Let's have a discussion. But not only let's have a discussion, let's have them talk out loud, right? I think the only people that really talk to themselves naturally are crazy people. So it's pretty artificial what we're doing. And again, think about this. How do we make the unnatural natural, right? So I said we were going to be business casual today. And so that's the first part of the lecture. And Toby, I'm right on time, to be honest with you. I'm right on time. I'm feeling so good about me. I will raise my hand and slap myself on the back. So here's what I want you to do. At your table, hopefully you're at a table where there is no one else that you know, or if you're at a table with your own team, that's fine too. If you're at a table with your own team, I want you to do a brainstorming exercise. If you're not at a table, I want you guys to share. I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes. This is what I do in my SMU class, right? And the question I want you to ask yourself, do a round robin, how can I get design into my company's DNA? Okay, so do a round robin, go real quick. You guys have 15 minutes. The researcher in me is starting the clock now. All right. So I think one of the cool things about an event like this is the opportunity to network with some other people. So Toby, round of applause for Toby for suggesting this. I thought it was a great idea, so good job, Toby. I did a little impromptu because I wanted you to meet some other people, so I had you rotate a couple of times. And you guys probably learned something. You're probably learning, hey, you know, my compadres at other companies are facing some of the same issues that I am trying to get design into the corporate DNA. You may have even learned that there's different approaches and different strategies that people are using. And I want you to kind of remember those. Be sure to exchange cards at the end of this so that you have the opportunity to continue the conversation. What I do want to do, though, is tell you about some different things that Jay and I have been doing. I hesitate to call them success stories because some of them are in progress. Some of them are very successful, though. But there are different ways to reach out, though, to the different parts of the organization. And sometimes you're going to encounter friction and resistance. And so how do you overcome that? And so I'm just going to talk about what we've done with some of the other organizations, and it may spur some other ideas for you guys. I will have a PDF of this available. I'll send that to Toby and he'll get it out to y'all really within a few days. I want to talk about what we've done with respect to human resources, and I want to tell you 3 things that we've done that I think have been pretty impactful in getting user experience kind of weaved into human resources. One of the first things that we did is we looked at our onboarding process. Onboarding is very important. That's that first time for you to make an impression, and you can get UX involved on the first day of an employee's experience. So what I asked Jay to do is talk to HR, get 15 to 20 minutes in the onboarding process where you talk about user experience. And what he was able to do is kind of showcase the key contacts within the organization, spotlight our usability labs, our accessibility practice. He gave handouts, and since he's been doing that, the results is he's talked to over 4,000 employees at the company. It's only 15 minutes and 10 slides, right? High impact, low amount of time. Now, that being said, Jay Shu is a recovering perfectionist, so the slides, Jay has went through how many iterations, Jay?
Too many.
Too many. That's code for like 50 times. Anyway, he's got a really good template and tempo because he practiced. And people are always energized, and they have the sheet, they know who they can contact. And if you have initiatives, like we have a design language that we're trying to get adoption for, Jay spends quite a bit of time talking about it. He also spends quite a bit of time talking about accessibility, and I think that that also helped with adoption. The next thing that we did is we looked at our training programs. One of the main jobs of human resources is to do employee training. And I'll tell you why I think training is important. We have a lot of millennials in the workforce. It's a differentiator for millennials. We hear that millennials are going to shift jobs every few years. If you have a fairly robust training program where they're being developed and you have a buddy system where they can grow and be nurtured, they tend to stick around a little bit more. So we've worked with HR on building out a really good training program, not only for our user experience practitioners, but also for other people so that they can learn about user experience. We're about to launch design thinking at Sabre, and we have a large initiative really over the next 6 weeks to get all of that training put together from IDEO, package that in such a way that we can deliver it to executives, we can deliver it to the middle layer of management, really where everything is occurring, and to all of the workers. And at this point, just with the UX training that we've done, we've probably hit about 2,000 different employees. We've had over 40 different classes now. Some of these are the same classes, but they're occurring at regular intervals. We also have a community of practice that was established 2 years ago. So we've had, I guess, 24 meetings with the community of practice. We've launched a design thinking community of practice. We've had 2 meetings. And we really only have 8 teachers, okay? Full commitment, high impact. The other thing where I think you can help out and get UX into the corporate DNA is recruiting. I think recruiting is a really big thing. And to my SMU compadres, this is your first or second mention, actually. You can partner with UX on the recruiting effort, right? And at one point, we had about 500 people in the pipeline, right? There, ladies and gentlemen, and you know this, you feel this, there are not enough people in the Dallas area to fulfill the openings that we have, right? And to make matters worse, you have the unicorn job descriptions that you see out there. Recruiters really don't know the difference between UX and UI, and they struggle with that. That is an opportunity to partner with them in getting the right job descriptions, and you can partner with schools to develop a farm system and maybe even develop the curriculum for the next generation of talent that might come out there. And that's what we're doing with SMU. We had 9 job descriptions. We rewrote all of them because they were terrible. We have 5 HR people that we work with. There's a kind of a regular rotation. But anyway, you can actually help the pain that you're experiencing by partnering with them on recruiting. Now, there's a lot of friction in the next group. IT security. Those guys, wow, those nerds, how do we deal with them? Interestingly enough, my creative compadre came up with a couple of solutions. He came up to me and he said, you know, Brian, IT is always evolving their standards. We should do a standards workshop. Let's work with them to try to figure out what are all the standards that they want to develop. So we put a little UX into the IT security guys, and they loved us for it. 3 workshops, 12 employees, took about 20 hours. We were able to kind of get some standards documented and figured out for them, so that was kind of cool. But he upped the game. Jay said to me, you know, what about our company tools? We need to have standard tools. How many times have you heard IT security say, you can't do that? Right? Isn't that like standard operating procedure for IT security? No, no! You know, I kind of hate those guys, to be honest with you. But Jay created a tools committee, and one of the main reasons he created a tools committee with IT security, it's for very selfish reasons. He wanted to have a sandbox approved by IT where we could play with new, cool tools. That was really the secret initiative that we wanted to take. They bought it lock, stock, and barrel because we had done workshops with them.
Well, here's the other thing too. how many departments actually go out to security and say, what do we need to do to work with you better?
Voluntarily, exactly.
Right. So when we reached out to them and said, hey, we'd like to connect with you to make sure we're using the tools that are compliant with Sabre, they go, what? Right? Really? So.
Right, and on top of that, the third thing that we did is, oh my God, we reached out and touched an IT security person with a handshake agreement. Procurement. Procurement is under IT security. So if you are struggling with maybe figuring out staff augmentation or creating SOWs, working with your procurement people to get the right vendors is a really good thing. They just guess, to be honest with you. They just guess, and you don't really understand what are their guidelines or what are their goals. It's amazing what can happen if you just ask and you work with them in their regular operating procedures. We have a preferred vendor list, and we wanted to knock some people off because we had never used them. And it took us 2 years to get the preferred vendor list that we want. I'll say we're almost there. It's ongoing. But by just working with them, we were able to streamline the SOW process, and we know how to coordinate to get people on the vendor list. And that's part of the battle, just kind of knowing what to do. There's one annual review. We basically, I don't want to say we had right of first refusal, but we had a top 10 list, and we made sure that at least 10 of the vendors that we want to work with were on that. The next thing that I want to talk about is corporate strategy. And I want to share with you a universal truth. If it's not part of the process, people don't do it. Right? We all know that. And here's a typical process, and I'm going to give you universal truth number 2. Hey, they left UX out of the process again. It is constantly happening to us where we're not part of the process. And so the first thing that you need to do is get to be part of the process. One of the jobs that I've been tasked with is getting UX plugged into the operating model and getting buy-in from the different constituents in the operating model, because I want to avoid the issue of if it's not part of the process, people don't do it. I actually have received very little friction from it because they're changing the operating model right now. I'd mentioned before using design thinking as a part of corporate strategy. We have seen a huge push and hunger for design thinking. This is something that people really resonate to, or they gravitate towards, and it resonates with them. So creating that package and having some success stories. I told you before, we did that one design thinking exercise, and it's not that we caught one fish, we caught 2. That guy, the biggest skeptic, was our biggest marketer. He's telling everybody. So sometimes pick the biggest skeptic, so they'll be your biggest marketer. One of the things that I did just on a lark was I started using the Kano approach in strategy sessions. So you guys know when you build a journey map, you have the stages, the steps, you have the pain points, the metrics, and you have the opportunities. After you do the opportunities, one thing that you can do is the Kano Method, and talk about basic expectations, performance payoffs, and talk about differentiators. What I'm here to tell you is some product managers' only strategy is parity. Parity is a losing strategy, period. Now, we went through an exercise with what I'll say as a skeptic product manager, and at the end of the session, I said, okay, Vince, look at all these opportunities. I want you to put them into basic expectations, performance payoffs, and differentiators. And we went through that, and he goes, I don't understand this, cool exercise, how's this help me out? I go, Vince, don't you realize I just helped you sell your product to executives and to your customers? Here's what we said. Look, we listened to you, basic expectations. You know what? You can be faster and more efficient because of these performance payoffs. And you know what else? We beat the snot out of our competitors by this differentiator. Give me people, give me time, give me money. He got all three. He got all three. He went from 0 to hero in 10 minutes. And the look of sheer joy on Vince's face was amazing. It helped that he was an extrovert. UX and development, and this I'm just preaching to the choir, I'm just going to grind through fairly quickly. Design must be ahead of development. One of the first things that happens is at Sprint 0, they say, where's my prototypes? I'm behind. UX is a bottleneck. Oh my God. Plan for that. If it's part of the process, that helps to alleviate that. As you go into a build phase, one of the practices or routines that we've established is what I call a UI sync up. And in one case study, we had a designer actually have UI sync ups with development every day for about a month. He even traveled to a foreign country. We also had parallel tracks of UI sync ups happening. So 2 designers, 12 developers. They had 28 pages, God knows how many micro interactions. They got it done. The other thing that I think we're learning is kind of the need to develop HTML prototypes. And if you can kind of talk to developers on their own ground rather than through a prototype, you're a lot more effective. They listen. We were just in a workshop yesterday, and we were reviewing an HTML prototype with a developer, and they just said, oh my God, just send this to me. We can just bang this out right now. Okay, and you had so much more leverage because you were using HTML. The last thing that I want to talk about before finishing up is about implementations, right? The first thing that I think you need to do is have a UX client checklist. So as you're starting to implement a white label product with a customer, that's an opportunity for UX to be involved. Frequently, we have not been involved, and we've seen the implementation go wrong, and guess who gets the blame? UX. No, it's really the implementation team. If they would reach out to us, we can partner together. It's part of the corporate DNA. It's part of the process. We also have a UX inspection done as a best practice. So after something gets implemented, it's just about to go launch, we go ahead and have a UX inspection. So I used to run the research team. It was pretty easy for me to just make that happen. The last thing that we do, we want to make sure that we instrument analytics correctly. So I worked with the analytics team to establish a pretty good process so it gets instrumented so that we can react whenever we encounter anything. So anyway, we're wrapping up, right? We have just a few minutes, and I'm going to give about 10 minutes for Q&A. But what I'm here to tell you is, ladies and gentlemen, design is unnatural. I gave you 15 different tips how you can work with human resources, IT security, corporate strategy, software development, and customer implementations. We've had a lot of success doing these things. And what I want you to do is pick one. Just pick one department. Pick one of these methods that I've talked about. And what I want you to do is leave here today, and I want you to go make the unnatural natural. I want you to go move that cheese, because you got to get into the corporate DNA. Q&A, brother.
You mentioned before you had these onboarding slides,
Yep.
Like a template. Are you able to share that as well?
No, but I can kind of give you the flow.
Okay.
You ready? Jay, give her the flow.
Thanks. Microphones? Oh, yeah, I guess I do need a mic for recording, I guess. Wow, okay. I've got a big voice. Essentially, I'll kind of summarize this. It's a lot of people it's funny, because I'll get into a room full of new hires, and one of the first things I ask when they're coming into our enterprise is, can anybody tell me what user experience is? Right? And the reason I ask that question is because after they get it at onboarding and we start having meetings with other product meetings, the first thing they say is how they don't need user experience. And one of the things I've said is, how do you know you don't need it if you don't know what it is? Right? And people have ideas that it's just make pretty pictures, just give me buttons and the pretty pictures and we'll do the rest. And they don't understand the complete scope. So we'll go into accessibility, we'll go into Spark, which Brian mentioned. in
The
terms of
design
having
language, yeah.
Consistent all and feel across all of our products and how important that is. Then I'll mention folks like Apple and Microsoft. When you open up a product, there's a consistent look and feel, and then once you know how to use that product, you can sort of kind of know how to use the other ones, although I do hate PowerPoint, so sorry. But, you know, it's that kind of opportunity, and I try not to beat them up, but one of the things I'll also say, and I'll share this, is one of my stories. I've told a couple stories I'll say, and I'll do it as if you guys were in onboarding. I'll say this. How many of you have a mobile phone? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you have gone to your app store and downloaded an app? Okay. How many in marketing did his job because it looked good, it looked like it was something you could use, and you go and download it and you open it up and it doesn't work the way you thought it would do? Anybody have that experience? Okay. I go, what do you do after that?
Delete it.
You delete it. I say, how long and how much effort, time, and money was put into getting that app developed and put on the App Store, and you deleted it within seconds because the experience wasn't what you needed to be. And I said, our job at Sabre is to make products that people don't want to delete, right? And that speaks to every person working on the product, not just user experience, but product and dev. And it's all of us working together is how that's going to happen. So that's kind of my messaging that I do.
So again, Jay is the right side of the brain. I am the left side of the brain. So I will say logic would dictate the structure that he takes. He does the definition of user experience. He asks a question. No one gets it right. The definition we like to use is user experience is a human need, well-defined and elegantly met. And then we talk a little bit about that. Then he goes into myth busting, right?
Oh, yeah.
UX is not UI, right? That's a big myth. Market research does not equal user research. And we need to really talk with the end user, not the buyer, right? So he kind of does a little bit of myth busting. Then he talks about some of the services that we have, the structure of the organization. Then he talks about initiatives, right? So a big initiative is the enterprise design language. A big initiative is accessibility, right? And then design strategy is kind of a new initiative in design thinking. He talks a little bit about that. And he ends with the contact list,
So
right? That's your structure. Boom, 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 boom.
That's a good point on marketing. We'll get a lot of marketing research, and we say we don't need UX research because we have all this marketing research that we spend a lot of money on. And I said, I use the Christmas analogy. I say, how many of you are parents that have bought toys for your kids? Right? Right? If you have kids, you bought. How many times have there been where you thought you got the perfect gift and they open it up and you get this? Right? So the parents did their marketing research and they thought they were doing really well, and a lot of times people will buy enterprise level software for people to use, right? But the kids and us open up the software and go, right? It's that same thing. If you really want to know what the kids want, you need to talk to them.
And what I can do is provide you with the outline, Toby, and then you can blast it out to folks. Do we have another question?
I have a request, not necessarily a question, but based on the scenario that you were discussing with me yesterday, you actually alluded to it with the IT leader in the workshop that you did. When you were discussing that with me previously, we were discussing how, from your mindset, it's not natural most of the time for design leaders to sell themselves within the organization or sell their initiative to get that buy-in. And I'll tell you that speaking with the leaders that are part of XD, as you and I discussed, looking for those tangible ways to connect multiple departments and the stakeholders to have that consensus and to really get the buy-in and support for those initiatives is critical. And so the leaders in XD are looking for tangible, here was the problem, here was the approach, and then here were the results. You mentioned your approach in the workshop, but when we discussed this previously, you also spoke to the results of that. Would you mind just sharing how impactful the workshop and the alignment with the IT group and the results that it yielded?
So, so with IT security, one of the ways, you have to measure in such a way that it's impactful for people. So with IT security, one of the ways that it was impactful for them is, one, it streamlined their process down from, really many months to a few weeks. The other way that it was impactful for them is that through procurement, we were able to get the people we wanted, but we also got the rate that we were able to get to, and then we could measure that based on the number of people that we wanted or needed for either that staff augmentation or that statement of work, and then being able to tell that story to people became really important. And the way that we tell success stories, and I kind of have the template up here. Here is the title, IT security. You might say it was procurement issue. Talk about why procurement is important. What was the approach? We had a workshop. We needed to do these things, figure this out. The donuts that are at the bottom, I show a number to show either a savings in time or an efficiency or money. So the one story I was telling with corporate strategy, when the one product manager went from 0 to hero, and this is true, this is absolutely true. He came in on Monday of the workshop and says, I'm not getting funding. By Friday, he had $2 million. Okay? And when you can show that type of an impact, it's tremendous. The other way that you can do it is you need to get other people. Again, I mentioned it, but I alluded to it, but it's very important to get other people to sell you, right? That skeptic who's telling everybody, oh my God, Brian and Jay, they did this corporate strategy workshop. We caught 2 big fishes. He's telling everybody, our pipeline is so full with workshops now, we're having to either turn people away or we're going to procurement to say, find us some strategists. But sometimes it's more important for a product manager to hear from another product manager than we can stand up here and scream in their face about this is a mistake, you need to do this, oh my God, and they just will not listen to it. Another product manager actually gave us this wonderful quote, this workshop saved me 2 years of churn. Money, tweet that out, let's go, put that everywhere. We created a video on that. So get other people to sell your services throughout the organization. It's money for you guys. You'll get time, you'll get resources, you'll get money too.
One last question.
So this is an operations question. So you mentioned about creating work in HTML, and we do have a team that has started working designer and front-end developer working side by side. And not surprisingly, we found that it's highly effective, especially since we're building out a design system. So we're able to actually pull those components, and it's repeatable and has some design integrity throughout there.
Right.
The question is, about a little over a year ago, we moved from Photoshop to Sketch.
Yep.
And all the designers moved en masse. There were transferable skill sets and things like that. Moving to designers working with front-end developers is a little bit more of a leap in terms of the organizational design. Are you experiencing that, and if so, how are you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The primary tools that people are using are more of the low fidelity prototypes, prototyping tools. So Axure, InVision, and Sketch. Those are the ones that we use. And we have libraries. And to be honest with you, we struggle with the libraries a little bit. We don't have quite as much freedom as we would like. What we have done is there are certain projects that we just deem as critical, and we assign the HTML prototypers to those. And again, I think the main thing there is it gives you leverage with the development team. One of the things we struggle with is actually finding, talent that can do that. And sometimes they end up going and doing other work. We do have that struggle. Primarily, we're using more of the low fidelity prototyping tools. We're experiencing a little bit of almost a telephone game is what's happening. It gets turned over to development. They interpret it however they want. They don't do a UI sync up with the design team. Again, if it's part of the process, that helps out a little bit. It then goes over to a implementations team. And to be honest with you, I have a lot of issues with implementation because you know what the easiest thing to do in front of a customer is? Say yes. So they turn everything on, they don't look at the impact, stuff goes everywhere, already from an interpreted site that's off from development, and then the customer, wait a second, complains, and then everybody blames UX, right? But I think one of the ways to alleviate that is if we had an HTML prototype, right, and we were able to just hand that off to dev, it kind of, you know, it smooths out that issue, right? Not that they're going to misinterpret it and we still need to do sync ups. We still need to do that. But it can still go wrong on the back end. That's why UX has to be part of the process, because if it's not part of the process, people don't do it. We do encounter those same issues, sir.
What's an HTML prototype? Can you define that? Are you talking about what actually outputs as an HTML prototype?
No, it's actually coding in HTML, JavaScript, all that, yeah.
All right, the last question.
Really?
Thank you. Okay, I have a question around the UX and IT security.
Sure.
Right now, my team, we are currently struggling with getting our IT security to approve the use of a collaboration tool for us.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any pointers for us?
Yes. Jay, you want to take that one?
So, biggest issue right now with a lot of prototyping tools is they're cloud-based, right? And so security is very skeptical about letting IP and client activity in the cloud. So that's one of the reasons we started to form the tools committee to develop a relationship. And we said a lot of these cloud-based companies will have enterprise solutions that are secure. And then it's about going through the business units and saying, hey, we know you guys need this, you need this, we need this. How about if we pull funds together and you know, pay for this, so that way it's kind of a pan-Sabre initiative as opposed to just a siloed initiative. And that's, again, thinking outside of the box, thinking across the company, what's good for the company. And as long as you can get the metrics where it makes sense and the dollar values where it makes sense, then you'll have an easier time cutting the jello.
Yeah, and I'll tell you kind of the other thing that's happening is if we were to have this issue with IT security today, right, on March 14th, this is exactly how Jay and I would handle it. I would say, Shu, I need you to go talk to the IT security people to help me out. Go set up a meeting with them and let's just try to figure out what is their approach, what are they looking for, stuff like that. What are their guidelines to push this through? While he's doing that, I'm providing air cover for everyone. So I'm having a different conversation, but I guarantee you we'll touch base at the end of the day, and because it's March 14th, both meetings would have pie, right? And we would have follow-up conversations, right? And we'd have the meeting before the meeting, the meeting after the meeting, and there would be pie in the meeting, because it is March 14th. But you need air cover and you need those conversations below. You just need to figure out what it is that is important to them, and how can you kind of fight through that jello, right, with pie. Make sense? Cool. Is that it? You guys have been great.